Today's video is going to be a tier list. A pretty small one, but I'm only going to be talking about stuff that I've actually read and watched. And don't worry, because I have read more than just the first chapter and watched more than just the first episode of the stuff I will be going into today. By the way, speaking of the whole Anime Men saga and stuff like that, I've had a script about tourism and stuff in anime and the wider entertainment industry waiting ever since the Devil May Cry video. But I feel like this whole fiasco has really kind of brought it back into the spotlight. So if you guys want to see a video on that next, let me know. I will be ranking each series based on a mix of a few factors, those being as follows: choreography, accurate depiction of styles according to, the exaggeration level of the manga, overall narrative, characters, and the final factor here is emotional content. What I mean by emotional content is that it should make you feel something while reading or watching. Let's put it this way. If this were a movie, right, you should leave the cinema saying, "I love that, I'll remember at least one part of it forever." The kind of thing that makes your heart stir. The better it does that, to me, the better of a job it does as a piece of fiction, a piece of entertainment. And of course these criteria are all biased because it's my tier list, and I'm judging based on what speaks to me personally. I will not be talking about the higher power level stuff today, meaning things like Dragon Ball, Kenichi, and Fist of the North Star are not going to be on here, at least for this video. Spoilers will be ahead, so look out for those in every series I talk about in this video. I say again, spoilers will be ahead. And with that, let's begin. If you've known me for any time at all, you knew where this was going from day one. Holyland by Koji Mori is an instant super S tier. I have made not one, but 2 individual videos on it that are not just recaps. And this was one of the first videos that I really put out there. I felt compelled to talk about this series because it means a lot to me. The main character, Kamishiro Yu, might not be, someone you look up at, but he's someone you walk beside. He is an incredibly motivating character to any young martial artist. The story tracks his development as he goes from someone who feels alienated from everything around him, even normal life, to then seeing martial arts as a way to survive, and finally, as his way of carving out a place to belong. The side characters in this series are all pretty good, and I think that's the mark of a good writer. Shogo is an interesting look at what a real-life rival character might be like. He's got that Vegeta-style personality, but in reality, as Holyland presents it, someone like that with a Vegeta-type personality has issues, and really goes through a lot of bad stuff, as he does in the story. When Shogo pulls through whenever he's there to do something cool, it's really cool. You also have Izawa, the person Kamishiro wants to become, and who serves as his original mentor in a way. Every single character, friend and enemy, helps Kamishiro realize something about himself and the people around him. The narrative and characters are connected so well, they develop together. You really can't have one without the other. You can't talk about one without involving the other. Everything moves so well. The one issue is that this loop the story presents, of Kamishiro doubting himself, getting beaten up, and then getting reassured before having a power boost and coming back and winning, it sounds repetitive, but when you're in the middle of the story and when you're reading it, it's not that bad. It makes sense for what kind of character Kamishiro is, because self-doubt is at the core of his being for the vast majority of the story. Izawa, the cool guy and the benchmark for all the other fighters in this manga, early on he says Kamishiro could be something special very soon. So once you see Kamishiro develop his skills and his confidence, especially towards the end of the manga, when he unlocks his full potential, it's very satisfying. So the characters here are fantastic, and the overall narrative about a young man trying to find his place in the world definitely has an appeal. Those 2 factors are great. Now let's get into the choreography and the depiction of martial arts. Holyland is about street fighting and prioritizes realism above everything else. The choreography here is fantastic because it all depends on how each fighter's skill is. Kamishiro at the beginning, for example, knows only how to throw a 1-2, and even that from a book, meaning he flails around the minute he's caught off guard, and he has an awful stance, but he's fighting ordinary delinquents at the same time, so he can really get away with it. As he improves and learns from others, though, He borrows their techniques, improves everything else, and basically gets better. The fight with King towards the end of the manga is probably my favorite in the entire manga because Kamishiro at that moment is finally able to see everything properly. He's able to fight another experienced martial artist, a criminal willing to maim him, if not worse, who is also using a style he's totally unfamiliar with, that was really never shown in the manga before the King fight. It's the ultimate test of Kamishiro's skill and his mental fortitude. Personally, I rank the King fight above everything else in the manga, even above the final fight. The very last fight in Holyland feels more like a reaffirmation of who Kamishiro is and where he is at this point, a sort of narrative conclusion in the form of a fist fight. To me, the King fight is the real final battle against a truly dangerous opponent. Kamishiro's fighting for his entire Holyland here, which has properly been formed. You see how I'm going back to character analysis again? It's all connected. To talk about one, you have to talk about the other. In any case, because the manga is about street fighting, the martial arts are pretty much minimally exaggerated. It even has little author's notes and like drawings throughout showing the principles of certain moves, certain arts, and so on. They are also depicted with their own aesthetics. For example, Shogo's karate has his hands drawn with this very solid look to them. King's Kempo, like him as a character, has him snaking around opponents and using soft techniques like eye flicks and wrist locks. He's a snake. Every major hit feels raw. It makes it very clear when someone's flesh is being struck in this very visceral way. It's done really well and it feels raw and brutal while staying grounded. Nothing is especially gory, despite this being a seinen manga. It really feels adult. Like you have to understand what violence is. The bottom line is here. If you have not read Holyland yet, you have to. It's one of the best seinen mangas out there in my opinion. It's a super S tier. It matters to me personally. Reading it, I believe, changed my life. If you feel lost and like you don't have a place in life, this will tell you to go create it. That's what the Holyland is. It's a place to belong. It's an excellent message. The slower pacing means that the reader really can change and progress as Kamishiro does. If you're having doubts, so is he. You are both going through this. So it really makes it one of the most effective pieces of fiction out there, really. You come out of it feeling refreshed and like a more complete person. I am not joking or exaggerating when I say finishing this manga, closing the book, gives you this I understand it now moment. If you are a man, you need this manga. It goes in the category of things like Vagabond, Vinland Saga, and Baki as a sort of necessary reading. But if Baki is a steroid in literary form, this is a spiritual stimulant. It shows martial arts as a tool for transforming yourself and the world around you. Kamishiro's vows to himself change as he does. He goes from I can change at the beginning of the manga to telling someone else you can change once he's become what he always needed to be at the end. He has an effect on himself, then his friends, and then the entire town. I could really go on forever about this, but let's proceed. Now, Red Blue had to come up because it's the series I mainly cover on this channel. I guess I'm the Red Blue guy, you know. I thought the dynamic between Alba and Kenshin here was interesting to begin with, and I do love the art style. And I'm glad that my first video on this manga was the first on my channel to really explode. Now I like the manga because of its simplicity. The art style is memorable, and it makes things easy to follow. Despite this, I am going to have to rank Red Blue B tier. The reason this is B tier is also because it's a little generic. That's not against it, I mean that in a neutral way. To me, something being generic is not necessarily bad, but I will say I was hoping for more when I read the first chapter. At first, my interpretation of this was that Alba was taking over a story that would normally be Kenshin's. I'm sort of keeping that throughout my coverage of this manga, but it's shifted to it being about Alba slowly becoming a shonen protagonist himself, and most recently, to him building himself into a proper villain for Kenshin to face off against. In any case, I don't have as much to say about this manga. It's a simple story, which is good, but it's nothing absolutely mind-blowing or nothing that really sticks in my mind, really speaks to me. Now, this is an MMA manga, so all the techniques you're going to see here are real. The art being so clear makes the choreography very easy to follow, which plays in its favor. It's very pleasing to the eye, and a lot of the shots look quite dynamic and exciting. So the choreo is a big plus. Like I said, MMA, kickboxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and a little judo, you know I love that osoto. It's stuff everyone is familiar with, all real stuff. The training scenes are lots of fun. I love training scenes. Not to mention that now that I'm employed, I am literally a machi, except I'm all about striking and, some stand-up grappling here and there. If the concept of a commute was a human being, I swear I would suplex it. All-rounder Meguru, the most realistic MMA manga out there. I love it. I made a video on this. Excellent stuff. Excellent. It's like a slice-of-life manga about mixed martial artists or shoot fighters. All-rounder is a fantastic look at the life of an average martial artist. I said this in the video on it, but Meguru is very relatable to lots of hobbyists. In his heart, he does it because he enjoys it. So, although he might not dream of going absolutely pro, he's going to come back to it, he's going to do it because it's fun, it's a hobby. And that's one of the best motivations you can have. If you like martial arts, you can leave it for months, but eventually something clicks and you're back. Ask me how I know. Just don't do that when you're starting out. Do like 3 days a week for a solid year so you have a good base in something. Then it becomes like riding a bike. The movements are always going to be there, even if, you get rusty, if you don't get, whatever. The character work in Meguru is the absolute highlight of this manga. The martial arts here is very realistic. Nothing is really that exaggerated. All the moves are true to life, so you won't see anything crazy insane. Now, something I find interesting is how this manga shows everyone's base impacting their styles. Like Baki, the female kickboxer, she favors striking and hates grappling, so when it is a striking match, she can basically murder people with teeps, roundhouses, and clinch work. Meguru was a karateka before getting into MMA proper, and he has solid striking fundamentals, but he starts out unfamiliar with some boxing and clinch work stuff. I personally am always glad to see what the characters are up to when reading this manga. It gives off a feeling of pleasantness, like very chill vibes, you know what I mean? It reflects its protagonist. It's more about living with the characters and seeing them grow than the fights, at least to me. So this goes up to S tier, but I will say, if you want to read it, don't expect a straight-up action manga. This is a slice of life. That's a better expectation to set for this one. Shamo is a deeply twisted, screwed-up story, and like I said, something about it sticks in the mind. And there are a few parts of this that I will absolutely never forget. We're going to start off by ranking this at S tier. Yes, there was a major break in the flow of the story. I know it was going one direction, went somewhere else. The last arc had horrible villains. But for all its flaws, there's something about it that forces you to keep reading. And that is the protagonist, Ryo Narushima. You see him spiral down into darkness, become a monster. But there are still these moments where you think he's still human. You see it. Certain behaviors show that there is someone underneath this deeply cynical, hyper-violent, unfeeling freak. A kid that knows how to play music really well, sympathizes with struggling artists, and honestly critiques their work. Someone who's willing to get people away from his property by suplexing them on the beach. There is definitely a man under there, a man named Ryo Narushima, but he had to become a demon so that he would never be a victim again. The choreography by itself is not the best I've seen, but the spreads and pages showing major moments, both in and out of fights, are phenomenal. I have one of them as my channel's banner. The main style throughout this manga is karate. Ryo learns it in juvie and uses it to protect himself and develops it further on the streets. First of all, Ryo fights off other prisoners, then criminals on the street, then kickboxers, and eventually hitmen. There is a kung fu arc right in the middle that has chi attacks and basically wuxia stuff, wushu, I don't know how to put it. But that goes nowhere, it's like a fever dream. That's one major disappointment I have there. It was showing Ryo turning into someone else. The last thing I'll say about Shamo here is this. It makes you hate and pity the protagonist at the same time. You're definitely disgusted by his actions, some of which I'm not sure I can mention on YouTube, so I'm not going to risk it. All I'll say is that this really lives up to its name as a seinen manga. Not excessively gory, but it is definitely an adult story dealing with some very dark things. I feel like Shamo might be divisive to people. You might love it or hate it because of what it is. So if you want to see the human equivalent of a car crash in slow motion, check this one out. And I will say the last few panels will definitely stick in your mind anytime you think of manga. Bouncer is just plain phenomenal so far, man. It's not done yet, still ongoing, so you can catch up, and I really recommend that you do. The art makes Impact look visceral in the best way. It's not a martial arts manga, really, not in the sense that it's about martial arts, but it's got good choreography and goes into enough detail to really count as one to me. It classifies as one for me. By the way, leave a comment if you figure out what the characters in Bouncer work as. I can't express enough how much I love the overall direction that the story goes into. It's basically a conspiracy or espionage tale wrapped in tons of horrific permanent injuries, brutal strikes, arm breaks, extreme gore, really extreme gore, some really insane character designs, and other absurd stuff. But while it is absurd, it doesn't feel absurd. It's not like Baki tier. The characters look really weird, but you just go with it, you know? Now, I called my video about this on its own, I called it The Manga Where Philosophies Die. And that's because the first ever training scene is the exact reason. That's the one chapter that I can never forget here. There are more brutal scenes for sure, interesting moments of development, but the training chapter outlines the core theme of this story. And what it tries to tell you is that survival above all else is the only philosophy you really need. If your morals handicap you, if trying to fight with honor prevents you from actually winning effectively or protecting who you're trying to guard, drop the morals. Survival is everything. If you want to protect others and be a bouncer, you must protect yourself properly first. Use weapons, low blows, eye gouges, anything you can. It gets ugly, but it gets the job done. No matter how bad it looks, that's what it takes to be a bouncer. That's what the manga is about. It features a fantastic display of point fighting karate, by the way. The guy using what I assume is modified Shotokan also has reinforced gloves and bursts in, just annihilating poor delinquents with it. Before you see the protagonist, Joichiro, actually train, the manga shows you the difference between someone who knows martial arts and someone who knows how to fight but just has monstrous willpower. You do need both, and a little more than that too. It's a very raw story. The choreography is brutal. Every hit matters here. The martial arts is depicted with respect, and even the stuff that isn't martial arts, even just street fighting, is dangerous. Something you may find interesting about Bouncer is that it features KC fighting method, KFM. This is our protagonist Joichiro's signature style, though it is modified a little, with hammer fists to the knees and all that weird stuff. But it does say that KFM only works in conjunction with a proven style like MMA, which our hero also trains in. The manga really hammers home the brutality of a fight. You don't walk away unscathed from a scrape, and some of the costs stick around forever. Joichiro loses his sight really early on in one chapter, and it gets worse over the rest of the story. He's stuck with it, which is a fantastic storytelling decision. Great choreography in its own unique way. You'll know if you read it, you know. Interesting depiction of martial arts. Awesome story to me. But there is one problem. The characters are just not that compelling. Other than Joichiro himself, the side characters just feel like they're sort of hanging there. And it doesn't have the same structure as Holyland, where you can say it's all about the protagonist. Here, Joichiro is involved in something bigger, so the side characters should have more appeal. But the way they're written, they aren't that appealing. They don't have a pull by themselves. I always found myself wanting to get back to the Joichiro solo chapters. So, choreo, martial arts, narrative, emotional content, excellent to me, but it lacks in the characters department, which is 1 point off. I wanted to rank this as S tier, but it's missing a pretty big piece, so I'm going to put it in B tier. Our next manga is Out. This is by the same guy who wrote Bouncer, Makoto Mizuta, and is based on a true story. Its protagonist, Uguchi Tatsuya, helped write it. Now I'm also going to put this in B tier. The choreography is missing here. It's got the same appeal as Bouncer, given the art is the exact same, and it takes place in the same universe actually, so we have an Out cinematic universe going on. I'm not saying the choreo is bad because the fighters are untrained, but because other than the really, really big hits, which are presented phenomenally by the way, the average fight in this manga is really not done that well. A bunch of it is off-screen, so that's a huge demerit there. The martial arts depicted here are done very accurately, because there are no martial arts to be depicted at all. These guys are a bunch of street fighters, delinquents. The fact that they aren't formally trained, however, does not take away from the fact that you don't want to mess with them. One guy has wrench nunchucks. The story is at least based on reality, So if you like that sort of thing, this is going to be a really fun read for you. As a delinquent manga, this is a must-read. It is the opposite of Rokudenashi Blues, showing the raw reality, the downsides of delinquent life. I'm repeating a lot of sentiments from the dedicated videos on both, but you should have expected that because, these are my interpretations. Rokudenashi says delinquency has an appeal, honor, and all that, but out-counters by saying it does, but more often than not, you're getting screwed over. You're trapped in the life. See my videos on Rokudenashi Blues and Out if you want more of my thoughts on those. That goes for a lot of the manga I'm talking about here. The sort of sentiments and opinions I have are just like previews of the stuff I've talked about in the wider videos. So yeah, this one is B tier. Baki, instant S tier, instant S tier. This is a must-read martial arts manga out there. You must have seen the Netflix series, but you have to read the manga. It is a different beast altogether. Animation cannot get across the speed and the power these characters move with. You gotta read the manga, man. The story is about Baki, of course, and his development into a man. It's absurd, but when the narrator tries to convince you something is real, I swear to God, you're 5 seconds away from believing it. The narrative from the original series up to Son of Ogre is one straight line, and to me that is the main story of Baki. Everything after the father-son fight just feels like side quests to me, but I do love the Musashi arc. Despite that, Baki is all about him becoming strong enough to face his father, and I really don't expect Yujiro to lose for real anytime soon. Maybe he never will, who knows. In any case, the overall narrative is great. You'll always be surprised with what styles and characters Itagaki brings in. Baki Do, which is coming to Netflix, which is crazy by the way, has one of my favorite characters, Musashi Miyamoto. Vagabond readers, I promise this is the exact same Musashi from that manga, and there is nothing wrong with him at all. Since the fights are between superhumans, the art is great at conveying that. The way motion and impact is drawn by Keisuke Itagaki is like nothing else I've seen in manga, comics, or anything else. It's a uniquely Itagaki way of doing things. Everyone is so expressive in every moment, even outside of combat, even sitting down. The martial arts are hyper-exaggerated versions of real things. Some are fake, but still work in that universe. So everything is Bakified, but it still bases things off real-world concepts. The characters are presented as embodiments of their respective styles, down to their designs being reflective of the mentalities their arts want you to have. Yujiro is the supreme human, and that's pushing the definition of human, by the way, which is why he's drawn in a totally unique way. Now this might be my favorite part of Baki, how Yujiro has his own unique, dedicated art style to him. Even Aikido looks plausible and dangerous here. Yeah, I know wrist locks work in some contexts, but can you grab a guy by his finger and slam him through a tree? Shibukawa can. As for what makes you feel, the father-son fight is great, but I do like the more quiet moments. The brief glances, like the brief conversations between Baki and Jack, the dinner scene especially, right? It really attaches you to these characters. The dinner at Baki's house is one of my favorite sequences in the manga. In fact, the entire lead-up to the father-son fight in Son of Ogre is great. Musashi's interactions with modern characters are also great. Just seeing the difference in how his era and ours thinks about violence is interesting. Plus I also like how he speaks differently. I really hope they carry this over and he speaks to the main characters in an older dialect or an older set of vocabulary in the show. That would be very fun to watch. I would love that. So yeah, Baki is S tier as well. Keep in mind, while I'm saying S tier, nothing has beat Holyland for me, by the way. That's still on top. That's the benchmark. Kengan Ashura, don't worry everyone, I'm gonna talk about Omega soon. Real soon. In any case, this one is going in A tier. My reason this is A tier is 2 reasons. 1, I can't just put everything in S tier, despite how much I want to. This list needs variety. Kengan is a giant tournament arc manga which works in its favor. There is no pretense, it's just about people fighting. But there is another aspect to it that I find interesting, that being Yamashita Kazuo's transformation. Oma exposes Kazi to a world of violence, a world where you really can solve your problems by punching the other guy in the face. So after the first alleyway fight, Kazi's thinking changes. He stops seeing things as, this guy is my boss, and starts seeing them as, if I were strong enough, I could pick this guy up and throw him around. The narrative is simple, but it works, like I said. One thing I never liked about any of this, world was the whole worm terrorist plot thing. That goes for all of Sanjo's stories here. The further it goes into this crazy sci-fi stuff, the less I like it. Just have it be about the characters trying to win. They have their own appeal. That's, it's good on its own. The fighters and their relationships with their managers, everyone's dynamic with each other, that's the core of Kengan Ashura to me. It was already lots of fun from day one. The choreography here is very clean, very easy to follow, and the fights are like tons of fun, super entertaining. Every martial art has its own dedicated fighter, giving Kengan major fighting game vibes. Somebody needs to get on that, by the way. Hell, get CyberConnect on that so we have an actual arena fighter for the arena manga. It could do so well. A lot of the martial arts aren't real for sure, but they get the principles and stances of the real versions across well enough. The narrative was lacking here for me, like I said, because it veers off into sci-fi territory. If it was a totally plain, character-centric, at least somewhat character-centric tournament arc with none of the other stuff, it could really elevate it. It could have been S tier. But there was just too much fluff for me. The final set of chapters where Kazi says Oma was his ideal self, that on its own, and the actual ending of Oma's story, that is just amazing. Alright, Sandro, what I want you to do is introduce a new protagonist and have us follow him as he gets stronger and enters the world of Kengan. Hey man, this is a great start. We've even got a whole new generation of characters. Hey, Gaoruki is pretty cool, and Koga's a fun protagonist as a delinquent sort of guy. I like this. I like the Gao style. It's got such entertaining moves like air renting. Wow, It being an assassination style with limited usage is a fantastic idea. Our new heroes have surely got a way to go. Wait, what? Nico style? Purgatory? Almost back? More Nico style? Sandro, what are you doing? Wait, stop skipping over Koga's development. Sandro, stop. We like your choreography. Just keep it simple, please. The connector, Shenmue Long, principles, you're destroying everything. Sandro, make it stop. Omega might be my first D tier. Just because of how dumb it is as a direct sequel to Ashura. The pacing is a mess, considering how we started with Koga's training. Putting his training off screen is an unforgivable sin. So many tournaments, it gets so wacky so fast, characters are introduced and wasted in a few chapters alone, it's all over the place. Koga is supposed to be our protagonist, but he's sort of been sidelined for the older people. It's a mess. D tier. Oh, what could have been with Martial Master Asumi. It had the potential to be a big shonen. It literally fits in with what I talked about with my Kenichi video, the school martial arts genre, one that's very nostalgic for me. It would have fit in with a lot of 2000 shonen, I think. Unfortunately, the story got axed, so there isn't much to go off of, but on the bright side, they at least got a few arcs done, so let's just go with what's there. It's a very typical shonen, but that's not bad, like I said. The character designs are great. If this manga got its own anime when I was younger, I would have had a crush on Nao and Riki for sure. Unfortunately, like I said, it's a modern and basically non-existent story. The choreography is okay, not the best I've seen. It's about MMA, but has some classical jiu-jitsu stuff and some anime stuff. Though, the main character, for what it is, I guess this is really just a C tier. Not too much to say because there's just not much to talk about here. It takes place in the same world as Hinomaru Sumo, by the way, so too bad it's gone. In any case, it had potential. It had serious potential. It, existed in the same world as Hinomaru Sumo, by the way. So in case you're extra disappointed by that, I hope you are, too bad it's gone. Abyss Rage is the first manga I recapped from start to finish on this channel. I do like the story. The choreography is nice, but in retrospect, it could have done better. When you're in the middle of reading it, certain moments really hit hard. But looking back, I feel like it needed more time to spread itself out. There were certain points here and there where it really felt rushed, and basically everyone having a flashback got a little repetitive. It is nice, it's a nice story, but it doesn't compare to some of the other stuff I've read. I'm going to put this one in C tier. Clean, simple, nice, but it's not going to blow you away or nothing. I heard this was pronounced Batuque in the comments, so I'm going to go with that. Batuque by itself motivated me to look into capoeira and what it's all about. That is definitely a fantastic thing for any piece of fiction to do if it gets you to look into something in real life. It's a good marker for how good it is. The art in Batuque is fantastic. It's drawn by the guy behind Usogui. The character designs and how they change over time is fantastic. You basically grow up with all the protagonists featured here, And the capoeira depicted here, the way momentum and powerful kicks are drawn is so good. It looks so smooth, flows so well, and at the same time, when a kick hits, it explodes. And I felt proud of Ichiri and all the other characters by the end of the story. It was amazing to see her develop and refine moves, connect with others through capoeira. I love the narrative. It had an impact on me during and after I read it. The characters are great, and the capoeira is represented well, even if it is exaggerated. I think this goes into S tier. If you like female protagonists, then this is the story for you. It's low stakes, it's a high school martial arts manga, leans towards realism, and it's really just about a naturally talented woman finding something she's bad at for the first time. I like the protagonist, Natsuo, because she never fully gives up on hating others. Even by the end of the manga, when she resolves her trauma and stuff like this, her base personality doesn't change. It's quite funny to see that despite her, becoming kinder in some respects, she will always enjoy being a vindictive asshole. Now the problem I have here is that even though most aspects are good, it's just good. It felt like the characters were lacking. The manga was 100% rushed, and it's very, very obvious, especially towards the end. The choreo here is clean. Compared to most women around her, Natsuo is freakishly tall, about 6 feet tall, so her teeps and longer strikes are drawn with this really nice look at things from her perspective. She can basically snipe people. The narrative by itself is nice, but again, it lacks enough time to develop. I can see what they were going for, but they just didn't go for it. They didn't have enough time. I'd actually put this around C tier, mostly because it had potential, but it was too rushed to expand on it. I do think Teppu is worth it to read. If you're new to martial arts manga and are looking for a girl-centric story in this genre, check this one out, it's great. Character designs are fun too. Now, C tier. You may be wondering why Ajin is on this list. 3 reasons. 1, because from my point of view, learning to use a firearm is the modern martial art. The second major reason is because without learning how to use one, I can never fully LARP as Big Boss or Sam Fisher in real life. The third is because the night before writing this, I watched Michael Mann's Heat and thought Val Kilmer in that movie was awesome. The one scene with the reload is so clean. The entire sequence of him firing in front and then behind him just reeks of trained movements. You know how you can just tell when someone's put a lot of training into something? Your brain just knows. It's so satisfying to watch that. Whether it's boxing, kickboxing, judo, dancing, anything like that. It's satisfying. Seeing the fruits of someone's training. Anyways, I want to learn how to do that. Probably going to get like a Nerf gun or something to practice, reloads, whatever. You can see by the cover here that his finger is off the trigger. Very good. I learned the 4 rules of gun safety because I went to a gun range like twice ever. I stuck to Glocks, but maybe I'll go one more time just to see what it's like to use a rifle. I don't even plan to own anything. I just think it's a good idea to know what it's like to use what is basically the definitive modern weapon. My personal philosophy on martial arts is that once you have a base in one thing, then have at least some idea on how to do the other stuff. This extends to stuff like weapons, as it always has. Fighting with swords, spears, bows, and knives was a thing for the majority of human history. In our era, we have pistols, carbines, snipers, and knives again. Maybe I'll hit up a paintball game and practice cover and concealment and pick-hand pieing corners or whatever the hell they do. Anyways, always work in teams because you are not actually a super soldier. Ask enemy teammates, yo homie, is that my briefcase? And do the Mozambique drill from Collateral. Dude, Michael Mann's movies, awesome, you gotta watch them. Now, Ajin, a nice depiction of gunfighting, especially considering they know they'll just respawn in seconds. They don't care about staying in cover. If you suspend your disbelief and go with that, it's fantastic. I love it. As for the overall narrative, it's an interesting look at what it means to be human. I guess you could classify this as urban fantasy, maybe, though if I'm wrong, let me know. Whatever genre Ajin and Tokyo Ghoul are in, I love that. Tokyo Ghoul was one of the first animes that I watched that really sent me full on into weeb territory, along with Code Geass, The Devil as a Part-Timer, and some others. I can go into, the list that turned me into an otaku or whatever you want to call it in another video, so let me know if you want to see that. Now, characters. We all know the one who stands above all else in Ajin Demi-Human. His name is Sato. Sato is one hell of a writing accomplishment when it comes to creating memorable villains. The peak of this manga, anytime he's on screen, you'll see some devious stuff. The other characters are okay. Our main character, Kei, goes through an arc of discovering his own humanity, But other than Sato and Kei, I found the others lacking. I'm going to put this one as a solid A tier because it lacks in the character department, and really, it's just a must-read for Sato alone. Do I need to say anything? Instant S tier. The characters, memorable. The boxing, makes you feel every hit. The speed and power is properly conveyed. There are some exaggerated moves, but for the most part, it's all real, just anime-fied. Do I need to say it? Man, if I was ranking sports anime, sports manga, this is still an S tier, top tier S tier, on principle alone. This is what I'd categorize as a blueprint anime. You know what I mean? It's the blueprint, it's what you look at. Before you ask about Ashita no Joe, I have not seen it yet. Things you might think I have seen or read, I haven't gotten around to. I'm just being honest. I have a shirt, an Ashita no Joe t-shirt, but, I'm not going to go as far as commenting on it. And don't worry. When I do reach Ashita no Joe, I won't put it on 2x speed. I won't pull my phone out. Nor will I watch the first episode alone and shut it off while screaming, "Where's my hype moments in aura, bruh?" And I'm not going to put it in F tier because it's old, I swear to God. Should I make a video on tourists and the anime men? Dude, I've got a lot to make videos on. Now that is my list. In case you guys are newcomers and wondering why I go on tangents, it's because I like to, and because I want to know that there are more like me out there. I want to know there are more people with my specific tastes out there. Let's just list a couple of things I liked. I used to play Hellboy: The Science of Evil on the PSP as a kid. I was a big fan of the Del Toro films. I don't give a shit that they weren't comic accurate, because they were great as their own self-contained world. You already know I like anime. I played Infamous 2, a demo in a GameStop, and bought that shit straight away. Dude, love Prototype. The whole genre of superhero games is kind of dead, by the way. Tragedy. Prince of Persia trilogy was fantastic. I actually love the art style and world of the 2008 game. Wish I got a sequel. Halo 1 to Reach is peak. Anything Bungie with Halo is peak. Okay, best of the franchise. Don't care that Reach retcons Fall of Reach. Don't care. I vividly remember debating whether to get ODST or Reach. I was staring at them in my hands, and I was like, I'll get Reach because it was new at the time. I love Spawn, though I feel like the comics should have ended after the Armageddon arc. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, this whole thing just seems like a schizo rant. Does anyone remember Death Jr.? I played Root of Evil on the Wii. Now that's a game I don't think many of you guys have played. Remember Flash games like Sift Heads? Remember Staggy? Dude. There was a DBZ one that played Smooth Criminal by Ant Farm in the background. Yeah, I don't know. I miss those. It was an important part of that era of the internet, and it's lost. It is a great tragedy. And yeah, you can probably emulate it or some shit. There's some software, I don't know. But the fact that it's gone, that's tragic. I'll mention some more of my favorite movies and other videos and stuff like that. Stuff like this will be coming up organically in future videos. I already talked about Michael Mann movies. So yeah, I just talk about shit, man. This is really all I'm going to cover for today's tier list. Let me know if you're interested in another tier list video, or an iceberg video, or an anime man video, a tourist video. I've had the script for that sitting there ever since the Devil May Cry rant. So comment down below what kind of video you'd like to see. This was actually suggested to me, the idea of a tier list was actually suggested to me by a comment on one of my other videos. So I really like the fact that you guys are suggesting things. It's a great dynamic we've got going on. I think it really helps me come up with video ideas, keeps things fresh. So yeah, suggest things if you'd like to see them. And if I think they're cool, I'll definitely make a video on them. That is all for today's videos. Thank you all so much for suggesting ideas like this. Keep it up. And yeah, see you all next time. If you're new, like, comment, and subscribe if you like my content. And see you next time as well. Goodbye.